Can God fix dumsor? Can we deploy the power of effective and fervent prayer to stop the looming power crisis in Ghana? What God cannot do does not exist. This refrain became popular among charismatic Christians when Nigerian testimony and miracle preacher Pastor Jerry Eze started his prayer movement. And soon many Ghanaians latched onto the media platforms and television platforms of this prayer movement, praying before their laptops and computers, beseeching God to help them solve one issue or the other, whether it's breakthroughs in jobs or for marriages or for sicknesses. People believed in what prayer can do. And so they still asked, what God cannot do does not exist. Or what prayer cannot fix does not exist. Well, meanwhile, even back in Nigeria, other preachers, including the most popular and most controversial, Dr. Ebel Damina, also challenged the thesis of Pastor Eze that there are certain things God cannot do, and that we shouldn't hold God for what he hasn't promised, and that God cannot fix a whole lot of things. So that was another thesis from there. But now people are asking, what about dumsor? Can God change it for us if we don't develop good policies to fix our own electricity? If you don't have good policies to fix our drainage so that it doesn't flood when it rains? Can we pray to God for God to help us do all these things? Well, this is what we are dealing with on today's installment of your favorite YouTube program, Tissues of the Issues. Before we go any further, join us by clicking on the button for notification and also by subscribing to this channel. Most importantly, give us a comment and also like the channel. So the topic for this week, and we actually replying to Mr. KSM. He's a popular satirist and a TV show host in Ghana, one of our favorites. So last week, well, about maybe 2 or 3 days ago, a women's prayer movement called Aglow, and it's an international movement, so they're everywhere. So Aglow International Ghana, they met to pray, to beseech God to help us fix the looming power crisis in Ghana. We call it dumsor. That they believe that God can give us ideas, help us to avert the danger of dumsor. We've been there before, and we saw what happened. Businesses had to close, and people lived in darkness. I had then moved back to Ghana. This is 2015, so I had just moved back to Ghana. And so I lived through dumsor. It was pretty bad. And so people are dreading the experience that we shouldn't get back there again. And so Aglow Ghana is helping us to pray. And then satirist KSM thinks that, well, Aglow Ghana is praying amiss. That if we are facing dumsor, it is not prayer that will fix it. We need good policies. We need strategy. Meanwhile, the Minister for Energy is working hard. He's promised us that, well, the government is really in charge and we might not get there. But we still need to work hard, though. But can prayer fix this for us? KSM thinks that, well, no, there are things we can do, and we shouldn't challenge God to do certain things. God gave us a brain that we should deploy our brain when, we are facing these challenges. God gave us wisdom. And that's what we can use to do this, and not always to pray for things like that, right? And I'm even asking, so there are companies that have God in their mission statement. They believe in God, they pray every time. But when their power runs out, I think they top up, right? You go to ECG and then you buy more credit, top up. You don't just pray for God to intervene. But we are also a Christian nation, well, secular, according to the Constitution, but nearly 70% of us are Christians, and some 18-20 are Muslims, and the others are also believers in some kind of design, some kind of larger design, some kind of faith. And so we believe that the supernatural can always be activated. People believe in that, well, there's somebody driving and his petrol is almost running out, and they believe they can pray, and for some reason they will get petrol in their car and it will get them there. It's a matter of faith, and it depends on what you believe in. This is what we call desiderata. So whatever you believe in is what works for you, right? So, but there are people who are critical, right? People like KSM have critical minds, and they are challenging certain things like prayer that, well, must we pray every time to fix certain things? Now, let me give you a story of what happened in Canada here. We have 10 provinces and 3 territories. And one of the provinces called Manitoba. The capital of Manitoba is Winnipeg. And the city of Winnipeg employed a new police chief, like the biggest police officer, for that province, we say region, so Greater Accra region, the biggest police officer there. So here, Winnipeg is the capital of Manitoba, and the biggest police chief was approached and asked questions about how he intends to face crime in the region, in the province. And he said, well, one of the things that they could do is to pray. And this is a Western country. Most people are not really up for this kind of prayer situation. So people started calling for his resignation, that you must resign. You don't have anything up your sleeves to help us fight crime in this country. If among other things we can do is prayer, one of them. The man's name is Devon Clonis. And you guess right, he's a black guy, right? He is a black police officer, in the city of Winnipeg. And he says prayer. So there were calls for his resignation, that he must resign, because, what can you do with prayer? That is people of Winnipeg. But in our part of the Jordan, there are things we believe in that, God can help us do a few things. So somebody's looking for a job, and instead of doing their CV very well and practicing interview questions, they will not do that. They go to a certain prayer camp, or they switch on to a prayer line, and they're praying for God to bring down a job for them. I don't know how that works for them, though. Somebody's looking for a husband, and instead of expanding your social network so you get to meet a lot more people, they can just pray. They decided they can pray, and then for some reason God will deliver a job or a husband onto them. When I set up my consultancy business in Ghana, I wanted to employ a secretary, and the person that came for the interview, mentioned things about, I asked her, so what have you been doing to find a job? So she's been attending a prayer camp somewhere, and they've been praying, beseeching God. I said, really? Is that hard to find a job? And really, her CV too was not great. So it means that instead of working out a CV, doing things to better, her qualifications, believe that prayer can solve it. So it's the reason why, we are where we are as a country, right? So I remember very well that during President Kufuor's time, some clergymen gathered at Akosombo Dam to also pray, right? Pray for some reason for God to fill up the dam so that we get power there, right? We've seen people going on Galamsey sites to pray so that God will exorcise the spirit of greed, from people who are doing Galamsey, so they will stop doing Galamsey. We've found a few funny situations in our country, so we're still wondering why we are where we are, right? But even back in Nigeria, where Jerry Eze, preaches from, they also have power crisis. They call it NEPA, right? So yes, it's even worse, right? But I don't think they've been able to pray for God to intervene in their power crisis for them. They're still working it out, right? So it depends on how you look at these things. But then again, I'm a man of faith as well. So, but I also believe that it is not everything that God should be worried, so to speak. There are things we can use our own hands, to fix. But I have a very soft spot for Aglow. Very, very soft spot for Aglow, because the national prayer director of Aglow, Honorable Gifty Afenyedazi, is my particular favorite. When I was in university, I remember at the time, I think she was the GJA president, and there were times I would cut her images from the newspapers, and put it in my album. She's somebody that I really admired. Now, let me tell a story. I met her when I came to Ghana a few years ago, and where I used to work. My organization sponsored a category in the GJA Awards, and I was chosen to go present the award to the recipient on stage. And so, and I met Gifty Afenyedazi back in the back room where they kind of prep us to go deliver the award. So she was there with me. And look, I stood transfixed before a person that I've admired for so long. I couldn't really engage her in a kind of conversation, but she's somebody that I admire. Now, Gifty is a person of faith, and you can see that. Another Gifty that also believes in what God can do is Oheneyere Gifty auntie, and she calls it super crazy faith. So maybe there's a thing about Gifties and the issue of faith, right? But so Gifty Afenyedazi believes in what prayer can do, and maybe her life is a testimony, right? I mean, she's risen through many things. She's done a few fantastic things, and as a career person, as a stateswoman, and as a person of faith. So maybe there are things about her life that tells us that, well, maybe prayer has fixed a few things for her. But on matters like dumsor and issues that we think we deserve, we should use our hands to fix, or our brains to fix. Critical minds sometimes differ, right? They feel that, well, we should not be looking at prayer instead, right? So I just spoke to a man of God, a Nigerian man of God, Pastor Obasi Ukwa, and I said, Oga, can prayer fix dumsor for us? Back in your home country, Nigeria, prayer hasn't fixed it for you. How can prayer fix it for us in Ghana? And he said, well, my brother, God can give us wisdom on things to do. He won't come down to fix it, so to speak, but God, in His infinite wisdom, can show you what to do, right? And you can get that through prayer. Now, we know the father of this Nigerian superstar is I think it's called Davido, and Davido's father is a rich individual, and he gave a testimony of how God intervened when he wanted to set up a power plant in Nigeria. At the top echelons of the Nigerian power structure, there were people who were trying to frustrate him, and he prayed to his God that somebody at the top there didn't want to sign for him to start work. And as we do in Nigeria, he said, well, he wasn't going to pay or bribe anybody. He just going to beseech God for God to intervene in the situation for him. And according to Davido's father, the person who was supposed to sign, who was refusing to sign, suddenly fell sick, took ill, and another person who was ready to sign now was replaced. And so he came in and then signed up for him, and he could start work. So maybe this is how prayer works, right? Some of us are still trying to grow our faith, so maybe I'm in the same boat with KSM. And incidentally, our fathers are also pastors. My father was a pastor. KSM's father was also a pastor. I think was a moderator for the Presbyterian Church. Man was a Assemblies of God pastor. So maybe even as pastors' children, our faith levels are quite low. We need to up our game in terms of faith works. But so this is where we are this week. We're still talking about whether we can deploy prayer to fix dumsor, and whether we should encourage what Aglow International Ghana, what they are doing. I think the president is Dr. Dorothy Danso, and the prayer director for the whole country is my favorite woman of all time, Gifty Afenyedazi. So this has been two of the issues. Now, this is where we get to deliver our verdict for the week. But before we go, again, if you want to just be kind to us once more, to click on the button for notification, and also subscribe, most importantly, give us a comment, and also like the channel for us. So as we do on this channel, we deliver a verdict. By the way, this is just a 15 or 10 minute presentation of our article in the newspaper. So we write a column for a newspaper, thenewscenter.com, every week. So we just do a synopsis of the article that is published in the paper. We just do a little synopsis for this video presentation, so that those who can read the paper can also access some content here for us. So our verdict for this week is that on the issue of faith, I am quite ambivalent, because I'm just thinking that there are many things that we can fix. And if you look at nations, other nations that perhaps do not pray. I don't know about China. China is progressing at a speed that is astronomical. I don't know about the relationship that the Chinese they have with God. I know they believe in certain things, but as to my verdict is that as much as we want to pray, I think we should also use our hands, use our brains. Prayer is always a good complement. But my particular faith, my faith in this business is that, well, God can fix it. But I'm not too sure I want to latch onto that thesis that what God cannot do does not exist. I think there are certain things God would not do because He trusts us to be able to do those things for ourselves. I'm just wondering how you can sit in your room and pray for a job, and because you believe that what God cannot do that does exist, then God can just deliver a job unto you because what God cannot do does not exist. No, God will, I think, would want you to rise up, go to school, right? Better your course, do another program. Change the program if you may, go to a workshop and do a new CV altogether. There also always a new format coming up. Practice your interview skills. Then you can land that job with prayer in addition. But to deploy prayer alone, perhaps that might not work. But that is just my thesis. People of faith, they have stories of how prayer can fix a whole lot of things, right? But as I said, I'm still trying to grow my faith levels to appreciate those dynamics. So this has been this edition of Tissues of the Issues. We will come your way again next week with yet another exciting edition. Thank you very, very much.